Hi everyone, I'm Vlad Sparastoria, here to share my shooting knowledge. Today I'm introducing you to the Sphinx 3000. What is the Sphinx and what is the Sphinx 3000? Sphinx is a Swiss company, technically defunct in 2016, but re-established as a different company that's still active. Phoenix, which produces especially for sport shooters, but also for operators, let's call them Tier 1, the most elite police or military forces, elite weapons, in fact. These are weapons made with the highest precision. Made with CNC machining, they cost a lot of money when new, but they aim to use top quality materials. The very best selection for the most demanding shooters. The founder of this company, an engineer, is also an enthusiastic sport shooter. And as you well know, in sport shooting, for a whole series of reasons, the CZ75 and its derivatives dominate. Also because, as you may know, the design of the CZ75 was never patented in the West, due to certain rules that existed in communist Czechoslovakia at the time. So many companies, seeing the quality of the design, in many ways, as you know, I'm not a big fan of the CZ75 design, jumped on it. The firearm has some useful features for sports, so it was widely copied. The most famous one, perhaps, is the Italian Tanfoglio, which copies the CZ75. In this context, Sphinx also presents its own mechanical adaptation of the CZ75. It does so using maximum precision, but also some innovative materials. In fact, there's quite a bit of titanium in this pistol. But you know what? Before we take a closer look at the details, we've got a few rounds in the magazine. Let's load it, cock the gun, and fire a few shots. Okay, that's interesting. Let's take a closer look at how it's made, and then we'll get back to the shooting range. Here we are, taking a close look at this Sphinx. How do we know it's a Sphinx? Because of the beautiful engraving here, taken right from the slide, actually quite deep, very clearly it says Sphinx made in Switzerland. On the other side, we also find the logo, which, as those who are more knowledgeable in archaeology or mythology will know, also reminds us of the Greek Sphinx. This, of course, is the symbol of a sphinx. Other than that, the weapon is actually quite plain, and it's very smooth in terms of its exterior appearance and finish. In fact, it's very beautiful. Let's take our usual look at the controls. We recognize them right away. There's the slide stop, which we'll use to disassemble the weapon. With an empty magazine, of course, it keeps the slide open. Of course, we have the magazine release, which is reversible on the other side. We also have the safety, which can be activated even with the slide open. The slide can be closed using the slide stop. Here is the safety again, which completely prevents the weapon from firing. Obviously, the trigger does what a trigger does, which is release the hammer, which in turn will strike the firing pin, and so on as it works in the firing mechanism. So from the outside, there are no particular surprises regarding the mechanical operation of the weapon. Let's take it apart to see for a moment how it's made inside. How do you do it? Just like with all CZ75S, actually. We pull the slide back slightly until this dot lines up with this small notch right here, which shows us how far we need to pull it back. In this way, it will be possible to push the slide stop out from the other side and remove it. By removing it like this, we can move the slide forward. By the way, something amazing. It slides on these rails so smoothly, it's really beautiful. I don't know if the owner cleaned it well or oiled the gun, but I've already shot with this one, and you barely need any force to make it slide. That's really amazing. It's also a sign of really fine craftsmanship. Very precise, there's no resistance at all. Very nice, very positive in that respect. We have now separated the lower of the weapon from the slide and the barrel. So let's remove the recoil spring and then remove the barrel. Now, the more perceptive among you will first notice a fundamental difference compared to the CZ75. CZ75, which like the old Browning system have locking lugs on the barrel, they have two specifically locking lugs and corresponding locking lugs in the slide. While this weapon locks in a slightly more modern way, it locks using that system invented many years ago by Webley, back during World War I. where the locking is completed in the ejection port. A system that's very familiar to us because many polymer pistols, first and foremost Glock, use this method. So here there's a clear mechanical difference that at first glance sets it apart from the CZ75. Another really nice thing about this firearm is that it has a truly fantastic trigger, but it also keeps the good old firing pin safety. The firing pin safety, on the other hand, has been removed in models like the Shadow, supposedly to improve the trigger pull. You know how opposed I am to removing the firing pin safety, because it's probably the most important safety feature that exists in semi-automatic pistols. So, compliments to the engineers and everyone at Sphinx, now Phoenix, for producing this firearm with such a good trigger while keeping the firing pin safety. As you can see, it's perfectly possible to have a good trigger with a firing pin safety, which is also really nice in this firearm. All the mechanical parts move in a really smooth way without any catches or resistance. And again with the slide, now without the barrel, that's all, but I mean, I really can't show you, maybe you can't tell, but the slide is almost not slowed down at all. The slide barely slows down. Everything is made with extremely tight tolerances, so they slide perfectly over each other. I'm really impressed by the build quality of this weapon. You know what? Let's assemble it since I'm singing its praises. Even though it's a CZ75 derivative and I have some prejudices against CZ75S, let's put the recoil spring back in, and there's really an incredible smoothness. Let's put it back. Inside, the hold open. Fantastic, let's go try it. And here we are back at the Gifoni shooting range where we're testing this Sphinx 3000. You know that I often don't like the CZ75 because of their ergonomics, but this one is already giving me a good impression. Let's put in a magazine and fire a few shots. So the very first thing I notice when holding this weapon is as you know, I've often complained about the grips on the CZ, especially the angle they have back here, but this one fits perfectly in my hand. The grip contours here are clearly different. It fits very well in my hand. My hands are really sweaty right now because it's the end of July in southern Italy and it's just a bit hot. But even with my slippery hands, I can grip it very, very well. Another thing I really like is the squared shape of the slide. A lot of people don't like squared shapes. They find them unattractive, but I think I've always thought that the slide of the CZ75 is hard to grip. I have the impression that even though it's not particularly tall, the fact that it's squared helps a little with gripping. I'd even say it almost feels wider than a standard CZ75, though maybe it isn't. Actually, this helps. I like this flat profile. That really helps a lot when bringing the gun on target. The frame seems a bit lighter than the regular CZ75S or the Shadow 2 or the Tamfolio stock because it's not made of steel, but it doesn't bother me at all. As a shooter used to light polymer frames, I don't find it annoying. That's weird. I want to load a bit more and shoot again because I'm finding a lot of positive things in this gun. It's as if Sphinx heard my criticisms of the CZ75 and the Shadow 2 and satisfied me. For me right now, in the CZ75 world, it's in first place, in that specific world. Also, because at these prices they're being produced at, maybe it's worth investing in buying the Laugo Alien. But hey, that's another story. Meanwhile, thanks to everyone for watching this video. As always, remember that you make these videos, just like the owner of this firearm who let me try it today here at the Gifoni shooting range. If you want to contribute to the channel, consider writing to me if you have interesting firearms you'd like me to try. If you want, you can also buy the channel's t-shirts, they help a lot. If you don't want to or can't support me in this way, but still want to give something, consider leaving a like or a comment and subscribing to the channel. That's it for this wonderful Sphinx. As always, I'll see you next time.